Travel Squad podcast.
We're four friends that grew up together in the same small town.
We followed each other to San Diego, and now we adventure the world together.
One passport stamp at a time.
We're here to share our travel stories and inspire you to go on your own adventures.
Even if it starts with your own backyard. I'm Jamal.
Brittanie,
Kim,
And I'm Zeina.
and we're the Travel Squad podcast.
So grab your tickets.
Your passport.
And don't forget your travel insurance.
And prepare for takeoff.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to episode 44, International Food of the Travel Squad podcast. I hope you're hungry. I hope you have your stretchy sweatpants on because we are about to take you on a food tour of Middle Eastern cuisine.
Stretchy sweatpants as if it's Thanksgiving. Am I right, ladies?
Absolutely.
Or a dress. That works too.
That's very true. So we wanted to bring you guys several episodes talking about one of the best aspects of traveling, trying the local eats and food. And we recently traveled to the Middle East, went to Dubai, went to Lebanon, and got inspired to share with you all about the delicious foods and how food plays a major aspect in different cultures and traditions around the world. And in this episode, again, highlighting Middle Eastern food.
Jamal and I have been together for 13 years now, and I have loved Middle Eastern food for all 13 years because Jamal and his dad both do some amazing Middle Eastern cooking, and Middle Eastern food is some of my favorite food. I love the falafel, the kibbe, the hummus, the fattoush, the shawarma.
The kibbeh.
No, but shawarma, garlic sauce. And I just can't wait to get into this episode to talk about it all.
This episode is definitely going to make me hungry. I'm already hungry. And I think one of the best ways to experience food in another culture is to do it with a local, which is why when we were in Lebanon, we were so lucky to go around with Jamal and Zeina's family, who took us to all the best spots, showed us all the best stuff. Mazza is one of my new favorite things. I think America really needs to adopt that. And there is just so much good food that I had never heard of before.
Yeah, and the meza that you're talking about, you could almost equate it to the Middle Eastern version of tapas. So just imagine a whole bunch of apps out that's for everybody to have and try. And that's one of the big things about the Middle Eastern food too, is it is to be shared.
So the Middle Eastern people are very proud of their food. And, I see this in my family all the time because growing up, my dad would cook all the time and then ask everyone, what did you think? What did you think? Is it good? And if it's less than 10 on a scale of 1 to 10, he'd be very, very offended. And Jamal has picked up that very trait as we just earlier today on this recording day had ramen. And I can't tell you how many times Jamal asked us to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, and I got less than a 10 from Kim on that one, and I didn't bat an eye.
The noodles
I
are not in your
understood.
control.
The noodles weren't in my control for the ramen, but nonetheless, very correct, Zeina. Middle Easterners are proud of their food. So proud when people say they like Greek food. I think to myself, what, you like Middle Eastern food? Because that's exactly what it is.
We're all from the same place.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how eating in the Middle East is a little bit different than eating in the U.S.
Well, I touched upon this earlier, and eating in the Mideast is almost like when you're eating in China or other places in Asia. It's very communal. Now, there is no lazy Susan for it to go around, but like Kim said earlier, she discovered and loved Mazza. So it's a lot of community eating. Yes, there are instances where you have your own dish, but for the most part, there's going to be a lot of apps out on the table, your hummus, your baba ganoush, some falafel, pita bread, etc. Yeah.
Kibbeh.
You keep getting on that. We'll get to that later, Zeina. Save the good story for
You know what I learned is Middle Eastern food is never ending. It's like course after course after course, and the food does not stop coming to you at all. And you could be full and you can insist that you are full and there's nothing else you want, and then another round will be ordered for the table.
If you even twitch your eye just a bit to insinuate you wanted more, Bam!
Bam.
More shows up.
Bam.
So growing up, my parents used to host parties all the time. And of course, my dad cooked. And it's like as soon as someone said that they were full, my dad says, oh, you're full? No. You want more. You want more. And without even waiting or asking, you just like put more on their plate. And even like this last time when we were in Lebanon, it was so funny because we went out to dinner at a restaurant. We were stuffed. And then my cousin's fiance was like, oh, you want more? And then she just like started to order more. And everyone was like, no. But like they brought out pretty much another meal.
And you know, for us being there, Zeina, at least you and I, like we know for sure that that's the culture. It's to be expected. But even though it's expected, sometimes you genuinely can't have any more. But it's rude to say no. They're purchasing it. You know, if you're out at a restaurant or if you're in someone's home and you don't take what's offered to you, it's seen as slightly offensive and insulting. So you always at least need to take it and at least take a bite. So point being, if you go to the Middle East, you're going to be eating a lot of food.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being at an aunt's house and I was so stuffed I couldn't eat anymore. And the question was, well, do you not like my food? Is it not good? Is it not good? And I'm like, no, I'm full.
It's so good. I ate too much.
I can't eat anymore.
So how do you say cheers or like bon appetit? What's the equivalent in Arabic?
I guess like the closest thing would be sahtain, which literally means two healths.
When that's to one person, but when it's in the group, it's zahatkon.
Sahatkon. Correct. I
There
know.
we go.
Kim is like our little cheers.
Kim tried really hard to pick up a lot of Arabic on that trip, and I was super proud of
Azim.
her. And she did. Look at her. She remembered that.
Yes.
Another thing about Middle Eastern culture when it comes to the food is not necessarily the food itself, but a lot of the culture and mannerisms about when you go out to eat with people and then the bill comes. Let's not kid ourselves. Nobody ever really wants to pay the bill, but there is always the fight for the bill. And so it's a little song and dance of, oh, no, I invited you out. Let me have it. And then the guest is like, no, are you crazy? I'm going to have it. And then there's a back and forth 5 minutes of yelling, shouting. Maybe if you want, you can throw your hat in the ring and say it yourself. But in the end of the day, you at least have to put up the fight. And somebody will get it, but that is to be expected.
Sometimes you slide your credit card to the maitre d' when you walk in, so you don't even have to partake in the fight and you just beat everyone to it.
Even outside of the Middle East, when I eat here with Middle Easterners who are friends and clients, I sometimes have to do that when we arrive. Slip the credit card because even here the fight's going to happen.
And even when you do that, there will still be a fight because they'll say, what? You gave your credit card already?
Like,
Yeah.
how dare you? This is insulting to me.
Or like, wow, which is like, are you kidding me? Yes. So, there's that. And then I remember years ago when I used to live in Lebanon, one of my cousins taught me that, when someone does say sahtain, like I said, like the cheers, which literally means two healths. Another thing that people say too is farahtek, which literally means your happiness. And the meaning of that is that this food is so amazing. We're all so happy. May we have this beautiful feast at your wedding someday, right? Like, isn't that so nice?
so
It's a lot of
really
meaning in
nice.
one word.
It really is, right? So I remember it was our cousin Haitham who said that, like farahtik, this is what it means. Like, may we have this beautiful feast at your wedding. And I looked at him and I was like, well, what if someone tells you farahtik, but you don't want them at your wedding?
Oh.
He looked at me confused and I was like, I'm just kidding.
That's a very good question, though.
I'll be like, bitch, I don't want you at my wedding.
Not you, Heisen, we do, but
Yes.
other people.
One thing that was really interesting to me is that when you go somewhere, whether it be a restaurant or someone's home, there's already like food and vegetables already on the table. And it's like tomatoes and cucumbers and bell peppers and olives. And they're kind of like sitting on a cutting board all together. And as you have the meal, you just start to cut what you need. And I think that was very unique because those things aren't like prepared in advance, cut for you. You just kind of like, oh, you're having this bread and this cheese. And then you just go to the cucumber and cut your slice. And there it is. And they don't have that, I don't think, in like any of the other cultures we've experienced it so far.
Even sometimes, though, when you get takeout or at the table at a restaurant, those things may already be cut up, but they're always there as like table snacks.
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing I could kind of think to that is, say, for example, you go to a Mexican restaurant and then there's just chips and salsa on the table. Or again, Mexican restaurant, whether it be taking food out or eating there, and then there's the pickled carrots and jalapenos. Granted, those are items that are prepared and things like that. But those are just, again, the common accompaniments, if I said that correctly, common food items that are going to be on the table for you. And it's pretty much a standard.
Yeah, like in Lebanon, you always have a saucer, like a bowl saucer that has olives in the juice. Just sitting there.
Love me some olives.
I love the Lebanese olives. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, it's so good. And the pickles. Yeah, they pickle their pickles differently, and they're delicious.
And it's the type of cucumber that they use, I think.
The Lebanese know pickles.
They know pickles and they know sausage.
They sure do.
Yeah. So before we get into the main food items, what you'll find at breakfast, lunch, dinner, etc. Obviously, we know a lot of Middle Eastern food, but some of the common spices and staples include like sumac, cardamom, za'atar, cumin. So a lot of those, maybe people here in the States would say exotic flavors and seasonings. Those are what you would be accustomed to in the Middle East.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. Well, za'atar is really thyme
And sesame seeds.
Yeah, and it's delicious, and it's mixed with olive oil because like it needs to be like this wet consistency. It's just dynamite. Now that we've talked spices and staples, let's go through an entire menu for the day, starting with breakfast.
My favorite meal of the day in Lebanon.
If there's one thing Middle Easterns do good, it's breakfast. I love the simplicity of it, and it's just so packed with flavor.
Yeah, so I mean, you're not looking at cereal or anything like that or waffles. No. You're looking at manaish, fetti, knefi, fool. So let's go ahead and break it
Better
down.
than a breakfast buffet.
Yeah, it is.
Well, what did you think of the manaish or manushi when you were there, Kim? Tell us about the whole experience, buying it from vendors on the streets, what it is, and how delicious it is. It's so unsuspecting, right? It's so simple, but
Totally.
it's so bomb.
Okay, when I lived in Lebanon, I lived off of manaish. Go for it, Kim.
I mean, they're pretty cheap. It was maybe $1.50 when we bought it off the street vendor. So what it is this amazing like dough of a flatbread kind of thing, but very, very flat. More than a flatbread, if that makes any sense, but also Middle Eastern. And then there's different kinds you can get. So you can get some with melted cheese, that za'atar seasoning, you can get lamb, and then you get vegetables in it, the staple. So it's like the tomatoes and cucumber and mint and pickles and that kind of stuff. And it's so good. They'll make them where it's just a flat bread folded in half or rolled up into like a little burrito.
But what makes it so good is how they prep it. I mean, they literally cook it in brick ovens.
Yes.
They put it in like you see people putting in pizza with the like wooden stick. I don't even know the name of the term for that cooking device, but you know what I'm talking about when they put it in the oven, pull it out. They use that. They're cooked in brick ovens, natural wood fire heat. So delicious.
Yes. Okay, so when I used to live there, the cheese, manushi, it's the Akele cheese, which is just like a white cheese. And it used to cost $1. So super, super cheap. So you can really live off of that stuff. And that's how my money went so far, is because that was $1 and the za'atar was it was 50 cents. And then getting all of the vegetables on there. It's dynamite. The other thing that I really like too is they make the manushi with the sujut, which is the Armenian sausage.
Ooh, I love Armenian sausage.
Me too. I mean, Armenians do sausage right.
It doesn't surprise me that you ladies are sausage fans.
I prefer
Talking about
Armenian.
the Italian beef in Chicago. Here you are, Kim, saying you prefer the Italian sausage.
I prefer the Armenian sausage over the Lebanese sausage.
I agree with you, and I say that as a Lebanese person.
But I love all sausages.
Yes, you do.
I 100% agree with you. The sujut, the Armenian sausage, is like the best sausage in the world. And not to make this sexual, you guys, but when you put white mayo on that sausage,
Ew. Oh my God.
mayonnaise and sujut,
People
is
on their mayo.
You're just dipping
delicious.
some sausages in some white mayo.
So they cut up the sujut and they put it on the bread and then they stick it in the brick oven. So like everything gets heated and cooked and everything. Then they put all the vegetables on there and then they have, like you have a mustard bottle, right? You squeeze out the mustard, but no mustard on that. That's disgusting. But instead they have like a mayonnaise bottle and they squeeze the mayonnaise out and just
Wow.
like, the sujut. Oh my God, it's so good.
Well, I'm going to move along and get you ladies off your sausage kick right now. And I'm going to bring up another fan favorite in the Middle East for breakfast. And this was a new one for Kim and Brittanie. Zeina, you and I have had Dad cook it before many a times. It's not on his main repertoire, but going to Lebanon, it really resonated with me again. I'm like, man, why do we not eat this enough? And I've started making it since I've come home. And why don't you tell us what that is, ladies?
It's feti. And I had never had feti before. We went out to a restaurant and I had it for the first time and it was so good. And what it is it is warmed chickpeas that is topped with yogurt and a garlic sauce and then usually topped with pine nuts and toasted pita chips. And when it goes down, it just melts in your mouth. It's so warm, it's so comforting, and it is so flavorful and delicious. And Jamal has recently been adding like dried mint on top, and that just gives it a perfect flavor.
You know, the feti we had in Lebanon didn't have it. I'm going to say that is a Marouche thing. My dad told me when I was making it, he's like, no, you have to put the mint in it. But it's very unsuspecting. I mean, you hear the description, chickpeas, fried pita bread, yogurt, pine nuts,
garlic sauce
or garlic flavoring in it. It doesn't sound like it would be the most bomb thing in the world, but believe me, when it's like prepped right, the way that it's layered, it is such a comfort food and an amazing breakfast. We all went out to that one breakfast spot and everyone was floored with how delicious it was.
Yes, I remember that morning too, because Haitham took us to the restaurant, and that restaurant is like popular for the feti, like the best feti in all of Lebanon. And I had
Strep throat.
Strep throat, yes. I had strep throat that morning for whatever reason. And when that hot feti went down and coated the back of my throat, it was crazy good.
Just like that mayo coats the back of your throat.
With that
Oh my
Armenian
God.
sausage.
It just like washes down, you guys.
You were a new woman after that bowl.
I really was. It just made me feel so good. And, you know, Jamal is sitting here saying that, you know, like it's not one thing that my dad cooked a lot, but you've really inspired him because, you know, last time I was, you know, at your place and you made the feti for us, Dad called and he wanted to know how good was it on a scale of 1 to 10. Yes, on a scale of 1 to 10, how was it? And I was telling him that it was like some of the best feti I've ever had. And I think that you've really inspired him to go back and retry his feti, you know?
Well, he's been making a lot of it, but you know, he makes it for us, but not often, because that's the next thing that we're going to talk about is he makes fool more often, which again is a fava bean and chickpea dish. And it's cooked down, it's warm, it has olive oil, parsley. You use like a sweet onion almost like as a chip to eat it with. It has garlic, lemon, and it's basically their version of a porridge. And he usually makes that more. And so we're so more used to that. But yes, he is inspired on the feti because he can't stand the younger Marouche rivaling him on the food game. Because that's how, again, Middle Eastern people take their food seriously.
Yeah, you're right. I do remember eating more fool than feti growing up. But the thing about feti is it's very, very heavy. And so it'll fill you up a lot faster. And the fool is fava beans and chickpeas. So yes, it's going to fill you up, but it's not that heavy feeling the way that feti makes you feel.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing about breakfast in Lebanon is that it's so different from American breakfast, where we're like grabbing a smoothie on the way out the door or just eating a bowl of cereal or something by ourselves. Breakfast is really like sit down experience where, yeah, you're cutting up the veggies and you're actually sitting with people. And I don't know if that's because we were on vacation there or if that's actually how it is, but it felt more communal.
I remember when I was living there, I would sometimes go to my girlfriend Isel's house. Isel went with us to Cuba, and she had this beautiful balcony. And we would go out and sit on the balcony, and we would have cut up cucumbers, dipped it in labneh, which is like strained yogurt. Yeah, I mean, like it's dynamite, right? And you put a whole bunch of olive oil in the labneh, so you're dipping the cucumbers, tomatoes, you have the olives again, you know, the olives there, the mint, and then you just have bread. You put it in the bread all together, make a sandwich from it. You have scrambled eggs. Like, it's just such a beautiful experience in comparison to like rushing out the door here in the States.
Good way to start the morning.
Yeah.
And a lot of the ingredients are like really fresh too. Like we're here in America, we're pouring bowls of cereal or, you know, just grabbing a smoothie to go, and we're kind of like in a rush. It was really nice to sit down and enjoy a meal.
And another one too is one of Jamal's favorites, No, I'm just kidding. I don't know if it is.
It is
or not.
one of my favorites.
It
If
is?
you're going to say knafe.
Go for it.
Well, I don't want to call it anything like a donut, but I'm going to say it's like their version of a sweet breakfast if we were to have a donut here, but it's not something that you could eat in your hands on the go. Basically, it's a melted cheese that has some sort of like shredded or cracked wheat or grain that's on top, but it's made sweet by putting like honey and homemade syrup on it. And by homemade syrup, I'm just talking simple syrup, water, sugar,
Rose
melting.
water.
And yes, and they add the little bit of rose water in it. And sometimes you can sprinkle a little pistachios on it. So that is more a sweet breakfast. It tends to also be a dessert after a meal. But if we're going to compare it to versions of things you could get here in the United States or other stuff, that's going to be their sweet one, like a donut. But again,
Or
not
maybe
grab
like
and
a
go.
French toast.
Yeah.
Not even.
Because it's warm too. So I guess
And
that
it's
is
on
a
a
better
plate
comparison.
with
Yeah.
syrup.
What a better comparison than I had. I'm just thinking donuts because I love donuts. But
I
yeah,
love donuts
yeah.
too.
And that's a really, really good one as well.
So if you're already thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, my button. Sorry, guys. Okay, stomach in Arabic is button. And so I always say like Brittanie, like my stomach wants to explode. And so I was going to say if your button feels like it's going to explode. So I wasn't going for butt. I was going for stomach and I mixed up my languages.
I was going to say that getting your languages mixed up on us here. Zach.
Truly, that's what it was. If you're thinking that your stomach is ready to explode because you're so hungry, great. You're in the right place because we're going to bring out more food. Now we're going to bring out the snacks, the mesa.
Just when you think you could move again from not being stuffed, it's time for your next meal.
That's how it felt every time we went out in Lebanon. Was we just got done with breakfast. Now it's lunchtime and we just finished lunch and lunch is never ending. And oh, what are we having for dinner? And food kept coming. But I loved the meza in Lebanon. There is just so many good snack foods that they bring out for you. I love that it's communal, so you can get, a little bit of everything.
I love that. Little bite, little taste of every single thing.
Yeah. And like when you're in a new country, you have to try every single new thing, right? So some of the things that they have on the table are like hummus or the grape leaves or baba ganoush, which is kind of like grilled eggplant. Think of hummus, but like grilled eggplant instead.
Yeah, instead of the chickpeas, it's eggplant grilled and like fire roasted. So it gets that really smoky flavor, but it does have the tahini like hummus does on top of it.
I did not like baba ganoush when I was growing up. And now I think, oh my God, because now it's kind of an acquired taste for me. Now I think it's the best thing ever. And I just have so much regret that I missed out on all of my dad's baba ganoush when I was a kid.
Good thing for me, I loved both. Still do.
Some other things that they have are like falafel balls or the sausages that Kim and Zeina are loving so much. They have the Lebanese sausages or the Armenian sausages. And, there's a good mix too of like plant-based items and then meat-based items, depending on what you're into. And so I feel like it's a place where you can eat according to pretty much anyone's diet.
Yeah, and speaking of the plant-based versus the meat, one of the things that you'll also find as the meza, because yes, you can get like a quick grab-and-go street food or restaurant and actually have your own individual meal, but a lot of times, for lunch, it will be the meza, and the meza does continue to be on the table at dinner before a main entree too, so it's, again, never ending. But one of the greens and fresh items that you could get versus meat is henbei, which I really, really like. It's basically dandelion greens with lemon juice. So it's almost like a little green salad of sorts, but not really. And what makes it really good is they have the good contrast with the lemon to some crispy fried, like caramelized onions on top. So you have that soft coolness of the greens, and then you have that crunch of the crispy caramelized onions. It's definitely really good. You can eat it alone, but a lot of people will scoop it with the pita and almost make it like a little chip dip type sort of thing.
And then we also have all of our favorites. Kibbe and kibbe nei. Okay, so I keep joking around about kibbe nei, okay? So kibbe is like a meatball, I guess you can say. It's just...
Well, there's two ways to make it. It is beef or lamb based depending on what type of meat you use. So it's either going to be beef or lamb. And it does have pine nuts in it, but what makes it kibbe is it also does have some sort of like wheat product in it or grain. So you can bake it in the oven or you can deep fry it like in a ball.
It's coated, yes?
Yeah, it's not really coated. It's the bread and the grain that they put in it that gives it that texture. So it's not really like a bread, but that's why I said it mixes the meat with the starch. And so you can get it two ways that way. Most common in the Mideast to go is going to be the fried way, but you cook it at home.
Good.
It's going to be in the oven. And so tell us about the kidbey nay, Zeina, because you keep saying it. So I just want to give everyone what the kidbey is.
So that's kidbey, right? So kidbey nei is raw. Nei in Arabic is raw. So it's just the raw meat. And I remember we were at a restaurant in southern Lebanon and I see them bringing out something to the table. If we didn't order, they order for you and they bring it out and I see them put it down and I'm like, oh, that's kidbey nei, thinking to myself. And then I see Kim reaching for it like the champ she is to try the new food, doesn't even ask questions. She's just like, fuck it, I'm going to go for it. And I'm like, oh my God, she's going to eat the raw kidbey. And she put it in her mouth and she was like, It
was like the sausage. She couldn't contain her excitement. She saw the kidbey
Anytime
nay.
meat gets around me, I just have to eat it.
Put it in your mouth.
Put it in your mouth.
No, so I felt confident eating, it was beef. I felt confident eating it because I actually went on a date once and the guy ordered steak tartare.
Or beef tartare, yeah.
Yeah, beef tartare. And I was like, are you seriously going to eat raw beef at the table right now? And yeah, so that's when I learned that you can eat raw beef. And so I felt confident eating it there. I like kidbey more than kidbey nay.
No, that's why I say you were a champ, man. You didn't even ask questions. You went for it. You did it. You tried it, So
I mean, I've had beef tartare. If it's made correct, it's safe for you to eat and it's decent. But I love the kidbey seasoning, the way it comes out when it's cooked. But even as a Middle Eastern person myself, I'm not a kidbey nay person.
10 out of 10, would not eat again.
The nay, though.
Yeah. Oh, I'll eat kidbey all day.
Hey, travelers, we're going to take a quick break to tell you about our sponsor, Podcorn.
Podcorn is a marketplace connecting podcasters with amazing brand sponsorship opportunities. Some of those are host-read ads, interview segments, topical discussions, and so much more. We've used it to earn cash to fund our travel adventures and bring you new premium episodes every Travel Tuesday.
Best of all, there's no middleman. Podcorn allows all podcasters to choose their own sponsors and rates that fit them. They allow podcasters to keep their rights to their own content. Podcorn is here to support you at every step and ensure you, as a podcaster, are protected and compensated for the work that you do for brands.
Podcorn's mission is to give podcasters transparency, creative freedom, and full control of how and when podcasters make money.
Click the link in our show notes to sign up and claim sponsorship opportunities now.
And there's so much other things that are offered at Mazza too. Like Zeina talked about the lebni, which is like the strained yogurt that you can dip all of the vegetables in. And there's cheese rolls, which are kind of like the American version of mozzarella sticks, but they're a little bit different.
Almost like egg roll cheese rolls, but they were good.
They're good, yeah. And then, of course, the olives are at Mazza, garlic sauce, pita bread. Pita bread is a staple. And putting the garlic sauce on the pita bread, I can do that all day, every day.
If you're a vampire, you're not going to like Middle Eastern food. I think they
Lebanese love their garlic sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Also, you know what? Going back to lebni real quick, because we were talking about it being strained yogurt, it's much thicker than yogurt, though. So it's not like just like the creamy yogurt substance.
Has a thick texture like sour cream almost.
Yes.
But not the same flavor, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And then one of my favorite things is the grilled halloumi cheese.
Oh, so good.
Super dynamite. And we also do chicken liver quite a bit.
It's very common. A lot of places in the Middle East and a lot of other countries, I feel like here in the States or more westernized countries, if you will, they don't really use a lot of the gizzard meat or other meat other than the normal stuff. So yeah, chicken livers definitely will be on there. They'll be fried up, cooked, sauteed, and they'll be on the table too. And depending on your preference, they could be delicious. I mean, I love myself some foie gras, which is duck liver. So why not eat another bird's liver and eat that chicken liver, huh?
Right. And then they also have fried eggplant, which is just like heaven on earth, especially when you put it with the garlic sauce and pita bread.
Let's get to a little bit more greens, though, because Kim fell in love with a specific type of salad while we were out there.
Real quickly, before we move on, one more thing, the batatas, which are the French fries.
I don't
Staple.
know. I don't know what it is about Middle Eastern French fries. They're 10 times better than you will ever find over here. I don't know if it's because they're fried fresh and they cut it themselves over there and they put some sort of special seasoning on it too. I don't even know what it is. It's not any of the ones that we listed earlier. It's not the cardamom. It's not the cumin. I don't know what it is, but it is bomb.
For all the food that we just listed, you'll always find batatas with it.
Yes.
Which isn't something that you find here.
And batatas is
Potatoes.
Arabic for potatoes.
Yes. Okay. Now that we've touched base on that, let's move to the greens.
Fatouche.
What is fatouche?
Fatouche is the best salad I've ever had in my life. And it's so simple. It's greens, straight up greens. It's radishes,
Bam.
mince,
Bam.
parsley,
Bam.
cucumbers, lemon juice, olive oil, garlic,
Bam, bam, bam.
sumac. And the best part about it are the crispy pita bread pieces that they put on it.
That's what really makes the fatouche is the fried pita. And then the dressing itself is just simple. It's olive oil, lemon juice, and that sumac seasoning that we were talking about earlier. But what gives the salad its freshness is that parsley and mint. If your flavor allows, you can even slice up some scallions or green onions and put it in there, give it a little extra herby zing. Obviously, you're going to have your normal lettuce, but it's those fresh things like the parsley and mint that really give it that shining aspect that make it just so fresh and so delicious. But one thing that is a common salad out there as well is tabouli. And most people, I feel like, who know Middle Eastern food know tabouli, and it is also a parsley salad. I will say this, though, eating tabouli in the Middle East is not one of my favorite things to do, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't think they make it anywhere as good as my dad makes it. Because a lot of people will make tabouli dry, and, you know, if you just took, like, imagine eating a biteful straight of parsley. It's kind of a little dry, right? People don't put enough oil and the lemon juice or a lot of tomatoes in it to get it kind of liquidy. And so they tend to make it dry, but when it's made a little bit more wet and moist, I love wet and moist.
It's got to be wet and moist.
Got to be wet and moist. That's when the tabouli really, really shines.
The women with their sausages and the men with their wet and moistness.
Apparently, Middle Eastern food is very sexual.
It's an aphrodisiac, didn't you know?
There you go.
And I will say, your dad's tabouli is the best tabouli I've had to date.
Hands down. You know, I remember a story one time when we were in Lebanon. I love my aunt's cooking. She's like one of the best cooks, maybe second best to my dad in terms of home cooks. And she made tabouli one time and she asked me, she's like, oh, whose is better, mine or your dad's?
And Jamal's like 10.
Yeah, I was 10 at this time. And I didn't want to lie to her, so I told her, oh, yours is really good, but I like my dad's more because she doesn't make hers as wet. It's a little bit more dry. And she had the most disappointed look on her face. I felt really bad. And then when we got back to our apartment over there, my dad told me, he said, I don't advocate lying, but you should have lied to her and said hers was better, and then told me later you think mine is better.
Very competitive.
I'll never forget that.
I think you made it up on our last trip. This is the same aunt who made us dinner, right?
Or the meal before we went to the airport.
Yes, lunch, I guess. What was it that you wanted her to make?
I wanted her to make her famous escalope.
Oh.
I love it. You can imagine it like a version of a breaded cutlet or a country fried steak, but Middle Eastern
Schnitzel.
style.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it was so good. And the joy, we told her escalope only and batatas. And she was so excited to make this food. And then she went overboard and did fatouche and tabouli and cauliflower.
She made kidney too.
And kidney.
Oh, her fried cauliflower
Yeah.
was bomb.
Oh, that was so good.
And she just brought her so much joy to do that.
I remember we were sitting at her house, and this is like the day before we were leaving, and Jamal got so shy, and he's like, Taunt Jamal, can you make your escalope? And she just like fucking
She lit up.
Yeah. And then Jamal's like, and he like gets a little bit more quieter, and he's like, and batatas?
And my dad will even say this, and he doesn't like to admit anybody's food is better than his. He knows his batata game is no match for my aunt's. Hers are like legendary.
so good.
She has a secret to it. I know that secret, but I can't give it out. I won't even deny it. And
Not even for a 5-star review.
The Jamal secret.
And we haven't even gotten to it yet. I'm sure we will when we get to desserts about the baklava. But I can't even give out my father's or the Marouche family baklava recipe because it is so secret, because it is so sought after. So I can't give you that patata secret.
Well, I haven't tried it yet. So
Well,
You haven't tried my dad's baklava?
no, I've just heard about it.
Brittanie swears by it.
I do swear by it. But the escalope, I'm glad you guys brought that up because that really segues into our next portion where we're talking about meals. And one of my favorite like main dishes or entrees is shawarma. I love shawarma. And shawarma is basically like meat that is thinly cut and stacked on like a spigot, and the spigot rotates around some heat and that cooks the meat, and then they shave it off into like a pita and make like a pita sandwich. And it could be chicken, it could be lamb, it could be beef, and it is just so delicious.
And shout out to our cousin Waleed because he took us to one place where they did the shawarma with saju.
That Armenian sausage.
And I've never had shawarma with saju, but it was in like the Armenian district there in Beirut, and it was killer.
You know what was so funny was every time we went somewhere in Lebanon, they always say, oh, this is a special place. This is a special place that we're getting. And Zeina looks at me. We're in the back of the car. She looks at me and she's like, everything's fucking special. I don't remember that. She's like, and then we go there and we try the how do I pronounce it?
Saju.
Saju shawarma. And she's like, oh, this is special.
It's funny because Waleed took us there after we'd gotten back from, where were we?
I forgot. I mean, he took us all around. Where
Biblos.
were we? Biblos. Right. I was on the way back from Biblos.
And then we went and met up with Haitham later, and we told him we went there, and he's like, I wanted to take you there.
Well, then he took us on the falafel tour.
Ooh.
But it's really good. The shawarma is a Middle Eastern staple. You can find it in restaurants. You can find them from street vendors. It's so popular that when you eat your Greek gyro, shawarma, stolen. When you have your Mexican pastor tacos that are cooked on the spigot, like Brittany's talking about, shawarma, taken over there. So it's basically like those type of styles, meat carved out, put on a sandwich. Garlic sauce is a must on it. I love shawarma.
Me too.
So next thing we're going to talk about is the falafel, or depending on your accent, falafel.
Falafel. Tomato.
I love falafel. There were two things I wanted to eat for sure when we went to the Middle East, and that was baklava and falafel.
Now, something you should know about falafel is it is packed 1-2 punch, boom, with fiber.
Because it's made from chickpeas or garbanzo beans.
Apparently, there's something called falafel farts, which I wasn't aware of.
Until you got them.
Well, I cannot.
She can't confirm or deny that one.
But anyway, apparently there's a rumor around in town that that's a thing.
Well, it definitely is a thing because of all the beans in it. But let me tell you something. Well worth it. Because falafel is one of the most common Middle Eastern staples. We mentioned it's going to be on the table with the meza. When it is, it's just fried out there. You have it as a sampler. But when we're talking going out and getting falafel now, they're putting it in sandwiches with the tahini sauce. Tahini is a sesame sauce with lemon juice, garlic, and then you have your radishes, your mint, your tomato in it. A lot of sandwiches in the pita bread. So when Brittany said it's a staple, it really is. Everything is pretty much centered around the pita, but falafel is just absolutely amazing.
This is the perfect vegetarian snack, too.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to a lot of vegan places, doesn't matter if it's Middle Eastern or not, in terms of their main cuisine, you will find falafel there for sure.
And when we went on the tour, we went to a few different shops where they had glass windows in the front where they're making it. And so you have the big bowl of the mixture, and then they were putting it in these little contraptions that put it out in the perfect size, go into the oil, everything's cooking at once, and then they take them out, and it's like this just well-oiled machine. Like, think like Krispy Kreme donut factory, but for falafel on the street.
And like we were talking about earlier, where we were saying Middle Easterns are so proud of their food, we actually went to a falafel shop. It was 2 shops next door to each other, and they were previously owned by the dad. But after the dad passed or something, the 2 sons took over the business. Then they had a fight over who made a better falafel batter. So they decided to split up and make their own shops, and they're right next door to each other, competing against each other on whose falafel is better.
Classic, dude. Yes. So our cousin Haisam took us on the falafel food tour, and it was so funny because we were already stuffed because we had lunch a little bit earlier. And then he's like, oh, okay, we won't do that much. We won't do that much. And then he orders like 50. I'm just kidding.
A dozen here, a dozen there. And then, oh, well, we'll get into desserts later.
No, but he was really sweet because I think he knew that Kim, you said that you wanted to try the falafel. And so like if you mentioned that like you want to try something, even if you're not really thinking that you're going to do it, you know, like they want to make you happy. Like they genuinely want to do something for you.
And it's not even just the act of service, but like it's one part doing something for someone else, but it's another part how much joy it brings them personally to do something for another person.
And that's one of the cultural aspects too of it,
So
minus
sweet.
the food, is they really want to show you a good time and make you happy, and it gives them pleasure to bring you pleasure.
I know. Haisam, we're waiting for you to come visit us here in the States, man.
Yeah.
Tacos all day.
So another one of my favorite main dishes is kofta. And kofta is like a rolled meat, whether it be beef or lamb or a combination of the both. And it's kind of rolled into like
A sausage shape.
yeah, sausage shape, or it can even be like patted down and then it's either baked or grilled. And then a lot of the times it's topped with like tomatoes on top as well and onions. And it is so good. It's kind of like a Middle Eastern hamburger patty in a sense.
It's pretty much their version of that. That's the best way to describe it. But within the meat mixture, whether it be the beef or the lamb, there is tomatoes, their Middle Eastern seasoning, the parsley. So the parsley is a big must in there to give it that. Now, Brittanie was right. It can be grilled. If it's grilled, it's more kind of in that sausage form. But another common way to make it, which I really, really love, is baked kofta, which they put it in a tray and then it's topped with tomato sauce and then potatoes sliced on top, and then you bake it in the oven. So when you cut it out, it's almost like their version of a meatloaf, but you have your veggies, your tomato, your potatoes on top. It's so, so good.
Like a layered meatloaf almost.
Yeah.
So one of my favorites is mjadra, which is lentils and rice with fried onions on top. And I know like maybe you're thinking, okay, lentils, but there's just something so special about the way that the Middle Easterners do it because of the spices that they use. And just, I don't know, you know, like I buy lentils at Costco and it's like the wet kind, whereas I think about my dad's lentils and they're dry but moist. I don't even know how to describe it, but like it's phenomenal.
And it's one of the things too where the little things count. You know, here you'll just have regular lentils, but over there with the mjadra, you have the fried onions on top, and it just makes it so, so special. Gives it that crunch, gives it that flavor, that whole new dynamic. Absolutely delicious. But I'm not going to lie, after talking about all the savory food, what are we having for dessert?
Baklava.
Baklava.
Absolutely. Baklava is so good. I was obsessed with it before we went to Lebanon, and then even more so after. Christmas was like my peak of loving baklava. And yeah, it's an amazing dessert.
I can't believe you've never had my dad's.
I know.
My dad would make trays upon trays upon
No,
trays.
I tried to mention it to him at the Christmas party, but I think he was like ignoring me or something.
No, I don't think he was ignoring you.
Speaking of the Christmas party, Kim got so wasted at the Christmas party, and Uncle Hanny told her to take some baklava home with her.
There was like a million trays of baklava at this party.
So
I was in heaven.
She doesn't get a small Ziploc bag.
I
Kim
asked him for a bag. I didn't say what size.
He gives her a gallon-size Ziploc bag, and Kim stuffs it full of
Dumps the whole
baklava.
thing.
It was not full, but there was quite a few pieces.
So then we take Kim home. Kim is drunk, and I like walk her up to her apartment to make sure she gets home safely because I'm a good friend. And she looks at me and she goes, the baklava. So she's like, where is it? That's like the only thing on her mind. So I have to run downstairs, go out to the car and grab the baklava from the back of the car, bring it back up to her. And she's like, oh, thank God.
Can you imagine how pissed you'd be like once like Brittanie leaves and the door's closed and you sit on your couch and you're just like, fuck, where's the baklava?
I woke up in the next morning and immediately thought, I need some baklava.
Finders keepers. I know, and then you couldn't have had your drunk munchy baklava or anything like that either. But
So
you know,
describe it, Jamal.
yeah, I was gonna say we're talking all about it, and if you don't know what it is already, I'm gonna describe it. But I feel bad for you because you've been missing out your entire life living under a rock. I don't know, but baklava is a very, very common Middle Eastern dessert. It's a pastry. So usually they use phyllo dough, which is a very, very thin dough. And the dessert is nut based. So usually with walnuts or pistachios. And the nuts are obviously ground up a little bit, flavored with sugar. But again, it's a baked dish and melt the butter on top of the dough itself. So it gives it that rich flavor, roasted flavor when it's in the oven. And then they have the hints of the rose water, the simple syrups of just water, sugar, boiling it up to create a syrup, coated on top. So it's just a really sweet nut and pastry dish, and it is absolutely amazing. I will say this though, some baklavas are better than the others, and my dad's is up there.
So Zeina, why don't you tell us about our last favorite dessert that we all experienced for the first time in Lebanon when we were out to dinner with Layla?
Before Zeina says it though, I just want to say we talked about it earlier for the breakfast. Knafi is on here for dessert too, but we touched upon it. So hit us with it, Zeina.
Yes. So I've never had this before. When we were out, it was new to me, and it's called Ghazal el-Banat, which literally means the hair of the girl. And it was like,
Beautiful.
I mean, how do you even describe it? Like it came out and it was just,
It's like
Cotton
cotton
candy.
candy texture, but doesn't taste like fruity like cotton candy. It tastes like sweet and rich. And it's kind of shaped like a bird's nest or like a girl's hair, I guess, done up. And then in the middle of it, there is like a sweet, rich ice cream in the middle of that. And then on top of that, it's like sprinkled with like pistachios or
Crystallized rose petals.
yeah, crystallized.
And the hint of the rose water. And if you haven't
I
caught
love
upon it
rose
enough,
water.
when we're talking about the spices, it's not really a spice, but I'm sure you've caught on to the theme. Rose water is real big in the Mideast.
I love rose water.
yes. In fact, I was once making pistachio ice cream, Lebanese style, and I accidentally put too much rose water in, and it was like rose water pistachio. Do you guys remember that batch?
Yes.
A little too much.
Sorry, Kim.
Got to be
But
subtle with it.
This dessert is one when it comes out, you look at the waiter and you like follow it to its table because it's so beautiful. It comes out in one plate serving for like 6 people.
It has that presentation wow factor.
Yes,
It's
beautiful. It's delicious. It's elegant. I loved it. And it was so unique.
And this was right before the COVID outbreak too, so we were all sharing it.
This was before COVID was even but a dream.
I know, right? It was safe at that time, so share with caution. But yeah, Ghazal el-Banat is like crazy.
That is like probably my new favorite Middle Eastern dessert. Like,
Jamal, you should make that.
I'll try my best. I will try my best for you.
Yes.
But only if you give me a 10 on it.
I'll help you.
All right.
So, we've talked all about foods and we just want to bring up a few drinks that are common in the Middle East as well. So let's talk about some of the drinks that we enjoyed while we were in Lebanon and in the Middle East.
So Lebanon makes their own beer, and it's the Mazza Beer. I personally love it. Maybe
good.
I'm biased. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But like, it's good. It's the Mazza Beer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything really special to say about Almaza in particular. With each country, they always have their own beer or their main line of beers, if you will, or company. Almaza is the main one for Lebanon. I just love trying beer in every country that I go to, whatever their main brand is. I love it. Like when we go to the Philippines for Brittanie, it's San Miguel. You want their high-end line. It's Red Horse over there. Lebanon's Almaza. when we
Mexico's Corona.
Yeah, Corona. And when we were in Africa, for example, we're drinking something called Black Label. And then when we were in Zambia, we had Zambezi. And it's amazing. I just love trying
Beer is
the local
universal.
beer. Yes, it is.
It is. And then along with beer, there was another type of alcohol, and Kim was specifically looking forward to trying this one.
It's called Arak. It's a Middle Eastern, or is it specific to Lebanon?
I think they mainly make it in Lebanon, but it's around in the Middle East. It's a spirit, though.
Oh, okay. Well, it tastes like black licorice and it's very strong, but it's a clear thing. And little trick that a Lebanese guy taught me is that if you pour a little bit of cold water into it, mix it up, it glows like this pretty white glowing color. And so it's a little like drinking trick before you sip it and
it's
shoot
clever.
it.
I would say the Arak is a classier version of a Jägermeister, although I'm still not a fan of Jägermeister, but I would say it's more like classy. Like it's so strong that they don't even give you like a full size shot of it. Like they have specific glasses that are half the size of a shot glass because
my
of how
kinda
strong
shot.
it is. Yeah.
40 to 63% alcohol by volume, 80 to 126 proof.
Ooh, that's a lot. 126 proof.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
In fact, I remember BuzzFeed did a video of people trying Arak for the first time, and you could just like see the tiny little amount that they get, and it
It's
just
so
like hits
funny.
them.
I
yeah.
have a bar in my home, so whenever I have people over, whatever alcohol I have there, we'll drink. And I've had the Arak since the beginning of the year, and that is the one alcohol people will not drink. They don't touch it, or they'll open it and smell it, or maybe take a little shot, and then they won't drink it.
Because
You're missing out.
it reminds them of high school because it smells like Jägermeister.
So, Kim, how do you say cheers in Arabic? Do you know?
For a group of us four, Zahat Kon.
Wonderful. I know you love to say cheers in all the different languages.
Yeah.
So I'm actually looking at our show notes and I've noticed that 2 very popular drinks are not listed. And one is Arabic coffee. And I don't even know how we passed this up on the show notes.
Oh, wow. We didn't even talk about that. Yeah. Arabic coffee. It's like Turkish coffee, and it comes out in tiny little glasses because it's so thick. And usually, you know, there's like a coffee dance. So you go to someone's house and it is customary. You have to ask someone if they want coffee. And of course you want coffee. It's dynamite. So at any hour you want coffee. It doesn't matter. And the correct answer is no. And then they ask again and then you say yes. So it's kind of like a little coffee dance. And it's so thick. I think someone has a story about drinking the grinds. I'll let you say
Brittanie
that.
has it.
But when you get to the bottom and you get to the grinds, you can also grounds. Sorry. When you get to the bottom and you get to the grounds, you can also use the grounds to tell someone's fortune.
So they say.
So they say.
So the first time I had Arabic coffee, it was at the Marouche household in Woodland, California. And Jamal's mom prepared some Arabic coffee, and Jamal didn't warn me. He gave me no warning. So it's in a tiny little cup, like smaller than a little teacup. It's smaller than that.
I would say it's almost like an espresso cup.
Yeah.
It's small, and instead of like it being cooked espresso style where it comes out of a machine and you actually boil the grounds with the water in a little contraption. And so the grounds settle to the bottom of it. When you pour it, some grounds still get into the cup.
So, you know, it's a drink meant to be sipped. It's not something like you take a shot of or anything. So you just kind of sip on it. So I'm sipping on it. And then there's a last little bit in the end of my glass and I just go for it and I down it. Jamal didn't tell me that there was grounds at the bottom. So I ended up with a mouthful of grounds and I'm like,
Well, I've been drinking it my whole life, and to me, it's commonplace to know that there's grounds at the bottom of your Arabic coffee cup or Turkish coffee, whatever you want to call it. And I just didn't think anything of it because to me, I guess I'm a little biased in that sense. It's common knowledge, at least so I thought. And so I didn't think the need to warn Brittanie, but every time we have Arabic coffee, Brittanie never forgets to remind me of this story, and now she has shared it with you guys as well.
And one other drink that we didn't put on the show notes was the white coffee, which
Oh, yeah.
I learned about in Lebanon. And I don't typically drink regular coffee, so I did pass most of the time. But when we were out at restaurants, I did want to have like an after meal drink because that's very common. And so I was looking for something decaf, and they have something called white coffee, which is not coffee at all, but it's like warm water with rose water placed into it. And it's just really refreshing and really nice and light. And I loved it.
Delicious.
There we go with our rose water again.
Yeah.
Love rose water.
So, and then finally, to round it off, in the home, you always have fruit, you always have coffee, you always have tea, and you always have chocolate.
That's like so different from American culture. When American culture, someone comes into your house, you usually offer them like a glass of water. I think that's pretty common. But
Because we're simple people.
In the Middle East, it is much bigger than that. There's platters of fruit. There's immediately boxes of chocolate like you get on Valentine's Day that they're bringing to you, asking if you'd like one. Of course, the coffee, of course, the tea. I mean, sometimes there's a lot more, but that's like the minimum that's usually there.
I just think a lot about Middle Eastern culture and the food. It just really kind of all revolves around it. When you host people, you're having them over to enjoy a meal with them. And that's something that's so different than our culture. Is again, the meal is to be enjoyed with people and shared. So it's something that they want to do. And that's why when you go into somebody's home, you will always be offered the tea, the coffee, have fruit out. And it's just a whole cultural experience.
It's a good time.
And then I think I mentioned this for breakfast, how it's just communal and kind of slower. And that's really how all of the meals were. There weren't really many or any rushed meals that we had. Everything was a sit down. It was an experience. There
It was
were
for hours.
multiple people, longer spans of time, and just slower.
You know what else we didn't mention is they always have nuts out too.
Oh,
yes.
Lots of nuts. All those nuts.
All the nuts, with
Oh,
the
yeah.
sausages. Nuts.
In fact, when I remember when I first started living there in my early 20s, like nuts actually, I don't know why, but like I'm not allergic to nuts at all, but I used to get sick. At least once a month off of nuts. So I actually don't eat that much nuts, especially like when we went over there. But interesting enough for my stomach. And that brings me into our question of the week.
Ooh, this is Kim's favorite time.
Question!
Questions.
Of the week. That was so good, guys.
That was a good one.
That was a good one. Okay, so our question is from Barry from Washington, D.C., and he says, what should you do if food doesn't agree with your stomach while traveling? And Barry from D.C., I feel you, brother. It's happened.
It has happened to the best of us. I have lived to tell the story.
So what did you do to combat the food poisoning?
So when I got food poisoning, it was in the middle of the Andes Mountains at 1 a.m. And
Sounds like a good time.
yeah, with no actual toilets around, but it was fine. You know, it's kind of gross, but you just have to get it out of you. And also, we always say this, but always, always, always have Cipro with you when you travel.
And not just Cipro. We want like Pepto-Bismol, Imodium,
Tums.
Yeah, all of the good things to have
Eat
with
it
you while
all.
you're traveling.
And that will literally save your life.
And we've had episodes and talked about this before in the past in terms of being prepared when you travel. And what better way to bring it back up than talking about food too? Because you always want to try those goodies in other countries. Sometimes it's not the food itself, but just in general, when you go to other countries, different bacteria's out there, whether they be good or bad, can upset you. So always be prepared. Have that antibiotic potentially. Tell your doctor you're traveling. Have them prescribe you one. Have those Tums, Pepto. It's going to make it as comfortable as possible should something happen. And I do want to say, don't forget the Imodium.
Do not.
I mean, what? I mean, you could take those antibiotics and those Tums, but it's not going to stop it. You need the Imodium.
No, I love it because I wasn't expecting you to say that, but like that's perfect advice. Absolutely. I'm sure we've all used Imodium at one point or another on the road. So
Any final thoughts before we close out this episode?
Well, I am starving for some falafel and fattoush and baklava right now. And that's all I have to say.
Well, Jamal and I's last name, Marouche, doesn't really have anything that rhymes with it except for Fattoush.
Baruch Fatouche.
Fattoush.
I think our cousin Waleed even said he used to get made fun of and they called him Marouche Fatouche, didn't they?
I used
Didn't
to
he
have a friend
that
who used
story?
to call me Marouche Fattoush.
Yeah, but the final thought that I do have, it doesn't necessarily center around the Middle Eastern food itself other than it's absolutely delicious, but Again, we're bringing you this episode because of the joy of having food when you travel. It really is a different experience. There's no better way to get you to understand and acclimated to a culture than through its food. And it's such a big part of traveling. And it's one of my favorite things to do. So don't ever be afraid to eat any of the food when you travel. Live a little. You're going to enjoy it.
And if anyone asks you what you think about the food, the answer is a 10.
Yes.
Go for the kidney nay. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. Please keep the adventures going with us. Follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Just search Travel Squad Podcast. And please send us in my favorite questions of the week.
And if you found the information in this episode to be useful, or if you thought we were just plain funny, please make sure to share it with a friend that will enjoy it too.
And as always, guys, please, please, please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast, and tune in every Travel Tuesday for these new episodes.
Make sure to pack your bags and grab your swimsuit because next week we are taking you with us to the big island of Hawaii.
Big Island! Aloha!
Aloha, friends.
Aloha.
Aloha.